Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today in studio, I have Jonathan Tasman of Little World, and I'm going to look at my notes this time, the SideQuest Book Club podcast. Jonathan, it's awesome to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a lot of words. It's actually inspired by SEO, because what I realized after about 2 years making my podcast is we were competing with like D&D folks for like, hey, it's a SideQuest podcast, whatever. And I'm like, well, we're really just a book club. So let me add the extra keyword, and it has shifted the audience in a positive direction for who we're trying to get in front of, which is good.
That's awesome, and good thinking.
Thank you.
Cool, man. Well, let's get started talking about Little World and fractional CMO work, because that's something that I think a lot of people are going to trend towards as economic conditions that we're in right now kind of are going, I don't want to say sideways, but we're certainly not on the upward trajectory that we had been in the last 15 years. And you see that a lot with the types of, like when the economy is not super strong, you see a lot of people get downsized out of corporate jobs or whatever it happens to be, and there's not another job waiting for them. And 15 years ago we were calling it freelance work, but now it's fractional work. So how did you get into that? Talk about where people can find you and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Jonathan Tasman. I haven't seen a lot of other Jonathan Tasmans, although there is one when I Google it and he plays baseball. I don't play baseball, so I'm not that one. Find the other one. Looking with the beard, and I don't think the other guy has a beard. So that's where you can find me, or you can find me on the SideQuest Book Club podcast on YouTube, Instagram, the whole gambit. So that's where you can find me. As for fractional work, I got into it. Man, it's 2026. I've been doing fractional since like 2015, really. I originally tried to start my own entity, my own marketing thing. We called it Snow Monster, where we were going to help artists in Grand Rapids have a place to build out of, and then also we were going to do marketing there. However, I learned a couple years in that the partners that I had, and I've got a whole lot of thoughts on going into partnership with friends. We're still friends, but we just weren't good business partners. Excellent, talented folks, but not everyone has business acumen, and that's okay. But you should decide on how you're going to splice the company accordingly, where there should be a head. Anyway, that's my little shtick there. But started there and then ended up having to close that down because they weren't interested in making money. But businesses exist to make money. So that's another hot take that we could talk about at some point if you want, which led me to going back to getting a career somewhere and doing marketing and stuff. But I kept getting people calling on the side like, hey, are you still doing video work? Are you still doing editing? Are you still doing email marketing? And it's like, oh, well, yeah. And I just would do it in the evenings. I'd just moonlight. And then eventually it became, well, I'm getting better career work in my actual trajectory of working in SaaS and IT and marketing, but people still kept coming. And so I just kind of freelance CMO on the side and in the evenings. And then I've been through 5 tech layoffs as well, which is just, you want to dive into that, just let me know. It's also not great. And you can't rely on companies to have the same loyalty that they had back in the 50s, which is like, I don't know how I was raised, where it's like, hey, you stick at a company, you get your pension, and then you retire. It's like, that's not a thing anymore.
Right.
So that's kind of the last 11 years or so where I've just been slowly ebbing and flowing with the market conditions, if you will.
That's certainly interesting. It's not something that they talk to you about when you're in school, or even and you went to film school, you said. So, they don't tell you that you're going to probably bounce around from one gig to another, and you may find some quote unquote permanent employment here and there if somebody comes along and scoops you up. That's kind of what I thought would happen with me. And then I actually had some job offers and had to turn them down because by then my consulting business had grown to a point where there were too many clients and contractors relying on it to exist. I couldn't shut it down just to go get a job. That would be pretty irresponsible. But it's funny you mentioned being able to Google your name, and a professional athlete. I got a funny story for you. Our most recent client, they're actually like 50 yards away from us. They're just right across the way there. And it's a installer of windows and doors. And the proprietor's name is Zach Van Valkenburg. And so when he first makes contact with me, I Google his name, right? That's just the natural order of things. And there's an NFL player named Zach Van Valkenburg, and it dominates the search results. And so I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to learn anything about this guy that way. Well, it's the same guy.
Oh,
Yeah, he played 3 years in the NFL before he started his business here.
oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay. Respect.
Yeah. So kind of a funny little story that I didn't know it was going to end that way.
Yeah.
But as far as fractional CMO goes, there are limitations and there are kind of boundaries on what it is that you're going to do and what you're not going to do. We talked off camera about how you do have contractors that work underneath you. But what is your core business model?
The core business model is just kind of the services I offer. It's not as mature as, Moxie Men, but it's sort of the things that I've learned to do over the years. It primarily lives in growth marketing and content creation, which then bleeds into social media, right? Because if you make content, but then you don't put it on a social platform, what are you doing? So those are the three main categories that I cover. But then I've also got people who come to me because they're just like not internet people. They literally had almost that exact phrase said to me within the last 2 months. Like, I'm not an internet guy, but I want to put my bakery online. And I was like, okay, well, I've built e-commerce before. We'll just like keep it easy. We'll go to Shopify. We'll set this up. We'll make it happen for you. So primarily growth marketing, content creation, a little bit of social media, but I dabble in other stuff as well.
So do your clients come to you asking for a specific service?
They usually have a problem and they go, hey, like this e-commerce guy, he's like, hey, I want to build the gluten-free pastry place online. I already sell gluten-free stuff. I just want to distribute it nationally. It's got a great shelf life, et cetera, right? And I said, okay, great. Well, let's sit down. Let's discuss like, what is your bigger vision? What are we trying to build in the next, month? What's your time frame? What's your budget? And so we nail all those details down, and then I come in and just solve marketing problems for people. Is really how a lot of the word of mouth has developed over time.
That's interesting because we're the same way. Like somebody might come to us asking for SEO, or they might know they need a new website, whatever it happens to be. But what they really want is they want more of something.
Yes.
And they want more business, more leads. One of our largest clients in terms of volume is a trucking company. And they come to us, they were actually trying to attract drivers. And so we developed a marketing campaign for them to attract drivers, and it's been very successful for them.
Yeah.
And so it all kind of circles around to solving problems, like you just said. So what does a typical relationship look like?
I try to keep deliberate processes as best as I can so that it makes my life easier. As a business owner yourself, that like if you have to custom everything, it eats more time, right? So I've got templates for things, I've got systems for things. Anytime I can go in and tweak something that is then copy paste repeatable for another client that just is in a different industry or wants a different service, that I've got, hey, here's my 6 templates, which one works best for the problem we're solving, it makes my life a lot easier. In terms of the relationship, they seem unique, but again, when I put the systems on top of them, they end up being streamlined, which is, it just makes your life easier. Like there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot of like client meetings. Those are always custom, right? Like you need to meet the client where they're at, in person, online, whatever. Yeah. You need to service them with whatever problem they're working with. Sometimes clients will be like, hey, I do this main thing over here, and then they'll sell something that I do, but they don't do as a company. And I will then fulfill it, and I ask them like, hey, are we going to start offering this as a service? And they're like, oh, well, no. And I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate the work, but like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I think a lot of consultants fall into that trap because you have a good client, you want to be as valuable to them as you possibly can, but it always bites you in the ass because you're trying to be something that you're not. And so you have to either acquire a contractor to help you, provide this service that you're not really set up for, but when you have a client that is a disproportionate volume of your, total nut, you really do whatever you possibly can for them. And I was always afraid to say no. That was one of my biggest trepidations was I don't want to tell them I can't solve their problem because then they'll go find somebody else. And what if they can do what we do better? We're going to lose a client in the process. And so that was a fear that I had for the longest time. I've gotten away from that. in the sense that we don't take on clients unless we absolutely know that what we do and how we do it will help them. So we don't deviate from our process very much anymore. And if it's either a good fit or it's not. And doing it that way creates a lot of solid relationships. But at the same time, there's a lot of boxes that have to be checked in order for us to be able to take somebody on.
Yeah.
So when it works, it really works. But when it doesn't, unfortunately, we just have to let them go. And, it's just kind of the nature of having a very streamlined process. But for those that it works for, it's awesome.
Yeah, I resonate though with the fact that like, oh, you don't want to say no. I did that for years. I'd say it was only probably in the last 5 that I started saying no on things where it's like, hey, I can do this, but I just know someone who's better. And like, can we hire them? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, and it's usually a contract or something because I want to be good at what I'm good at. And then I want to bring in someone else that I just know kills it in whatever the thing is, and then have them do it. And then I still look good without any of the risk. So I want to just do what I'm good at.
So let me ask you this. How many clients have you lost saying no in that capacity?
None.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No clients ever fired us because we told them that we don't provide that service.
Right.
And it's just a simple, like, I'll help you find somebody to do it. And I'm willing to manage the project because I know what the end result needs to be.
Yeah.
But that's not a service we provide.
Yeah. Yeah. And no one taught me that when I was like figuring this stuff out because it's all, choose your own adventure. Right. And that's the problem is you were talking about market conditions earlier is it's true. Like I think of a hip hop lyric, these companies ain't loyal basically, but you could swap out the word companies and, and it's true, but it's just business, right? Like sometimes it's not a good business fit, but it could be a good fit somewhere else. And like, it's not meant to be taken personally. I talked about going through 5 different tech layoffs. It's like, it's never personal. One time my CEO got into a fight with the VCs and he was forced to lay off half the company. It's just like things happen and it's not always a reflection of your work, even though it can feel like that for any of the younger listeners out there who might have gone through one because Q4 comes around too. And then finance people are like, we can look profitable in Q1 if we cut, 20% of the staff and then you end up getting cut. And it's just like, it's not a reflection of your work. It's just the nature of how people change the business numbers, if you will. So.
Yeah, it's a sad reality. That's the nature of employment.
Yeah.
They only need you till they don't.
Correct.
And so.
Even if you're still valuable.
Yeah, well, you see a lot with larger companies. They start, looking at the economics. And when we're in strong economic times, they'll spend money left and right. They'll distribute bonuses and they'll overhire and all this other stuff because they're flush with cash. But as soon as things start going sideways, not even going down, but just going sideways, they start looking at, okay, well, the economic forecast isn't as strong. We can get 80% of the output for 50% of the salary if we let this 20-year veteran go and hire somebody less experience. Yeah, there'll be a trade-off, but the bottom line is it's not going to affect their stock price, and so, or if it does affect their stock price, it's going to go up because they're going to look more profitable, like you just articulated.
Yeah.
And so you see that a lot with larger companies, and it's just the nature of it. I think that's the risk you take as an employee.
It is, which is why it's important to have enough skills to deviate. And like whether you start a little Etsy store, you're selling stickers, something like that, have something. I really encourage everyone in today's trying times economically, have something that you're good at on the side. Maybe you clean houses on the weekend. It really doesn't matter. You could do the Gary Vee thing and go to garage sales and just like put stuff on eBay. Like it doesn't matter, but you should have something that is more stable unless you're, a 20-year vet in Chase Bank, right? Like where you're probably not getting laid off unless you do something to somebody's, family member because you're just like part of the boys club.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's safe, personally.
Hey, fair enough.
If things go south long enough, there's nobody that's not expendable, except for maybe the shareholders, because they're the ones that call the shots. That's
fair. I used a bank example because like they keep getting payouts. So that's why I was like, maybe they're not safe, but they're safe, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, they're not going to go to jail. But we've proven that
multiple times over.
Yeah. So, when you jump in as a fractional CMO, what are you finding that you usually have to fix first? And where I'm going with that is not necessarily in terms of like technical, because it's pretty easy to look at a website and see what's broken if you have any experience at all. But what I've found, and maybe you'll agree with this before you answer, but I've found that you have to fix their mindset. And I think, and you'll probably speak to this as well, that every client comes to us off of a bad experience with another agency, and it's frustrating. I'm sure you can speak to that as well.
Yeah, it's just funny. I love the opening of that question. Like, what do you have to fix first? It's like, well, that's usually what they come with problems, right? They're like, hey, I have this problem. I want someone to fix it. So-and-so said you were good. Can you do it? And it's like, oh, well, yeah. But to your point, like fixing the mindset first is I like to make sure that I get people aligned with, okay, what are we doing? You said you came to me with problem A, but I've noticed X, Y, and Z, and this is like a surface level issue. And really you need to get deeper over here, whether it's cultural or, your breakdown isn't right. I've had people come to me and they're like, hey, we're selling this widget. And I go, okay, cool. But like, what about these things? They're like, oh, well, we don't do that stuff. And it's like, so is everyone that you're servicing custom? And they're like, oh yeah, well, this person is custom, and it's like 90% of what they're servicing is custom. And I'm like, okay, you don't have a leads problem. You're selling to people that you shouldn't be selling to, because like, well, get $500. I wanted to make sure that he could come in and like get the same thing that we're offering over here for 15 grand, but like just a lesser version. I'm like, but what is that costing you in terms of personnel time on the back end? It's more than $500. I can guarantee you that. And it's just like, you need to, nail down your service offering. What is your service offering? And have your packages. If you have your packages, then you're streamlining things so that you do less work, and you can pull a couple levers if you need to, but it shouldn't be like a huge discount, because that, ends up not serving them. But I try to get them aligned with like, what is the real problem that they have versus the problem they came to me with. And usually it's not the same thing. So getting them aligned is a challenge in and of itself, but it's that first, and then I benchmark. I go, okay, before I touch anything, like, where are you at?
Right.
Because if I can't prove positive or negative return, then like, don't bother hiring me.
I fell into that trap, early on of somebody doesn't have, they might, like you say, only have a few $100 to work with. Mm-hmm. And I try to give them some value for whatever they have. And what I found is that a lot of times, if somebody's they got $500, just to pull a number out of thin air, that's the only $500 they have.
Right.
And they are watching it like a hawk. And they are always the first to pull the plug if they don't see results in the amount of time, basically when they run out of patience.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And to your point, to build off of it, it's like, all right, if they've got the $500, that's probably like 80% of their budget, if not 100% of their budget for, let's say, marketing. And so they're going to watch it. And like, it'd be better to find someone who can pay $3,000 to $5,000, and that's 2% of the budget for the year. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. I always tell clients that when you're the one writing the check, you get what you want. Right. But my job isn't to tell you what you want to hear. My job is to tell you what you need to hear.
Right.
And we have to, and I tell every client this in the very first discovery meeting, that we have to have a relationship based on complete honesty. I have to be able to tell you if your website sucks. And that's a policy born out of necessity, like most policies are. I had a client, this is probably 10, 12 years ago. It was a very brief engagement. He had this website that he had literally used Comic Sans all over. And he was
blessed.
So fucking proud of this website. You have no idea. And I had to break the news to him that like he was comparing it, this like nationwide company, and he's just local. And he's like, who would you rather buy from, them or me? I'm like, well, their website looks a lot more professional. It's much more polished. The information's a lot easier to access. The fonts are professional. I'm like, that shit matters.
Yeah.
And we parted ways after that. I'm like, I'm not going to butt heads over common sense. I'm like, I learned not to deal with guys like that. And those are the types of things you only learn from experience. Because like you said before, there's no playbook. Nobody teaches you this stuff. You just got to figure it out on your own. And hopefully somebody listening to this podcast, hey, this is what you don't do. Don't deal with narcissists.
Yeah. And you're not there to just tell them they're wrong and shit on everything. Like the whole point is like, you want them to succeed. This is how you get with the results that you're looking for. I'm not here to twist your arm. I'm not here to like tell you you're a bad person. Don't take it personally. I'm here to make you money, or I'm here to help your business.
He wanted me to validate what he had done, and that's not my function. You want a yes man. Hey, they're out there. They'll take your money. I don't fall into that category.
Attaboy.
So yeah, we didn't part ways with me being very popular in his mind, but hey, whatever. You can't.
As long as you were able to part ways amicably enough.
Essentially. That kind of speaks to a mindset of abundance. If you have a lot of clients and you have the ability to attract more clients, you don't have to say yes to everybody, and you don't have to cater to people that aren't a good fit or people that you just don't want to be around. With Moxie Men, we will handle pretty much everything that we're capable of on behalf of a client. But like we talked about before, there are boundaries. Where do you establish those boundaries? Do you establish them early in the relationship or down the road when a request comes down? How do you handle those types of things?
And so if I've got a full plate with the clients that I'm servicing right now, then it's going to come up when they say, hey, we need to do a rebrand. It's like, okay, I can give some opinions, I can give some expertise, but like I don't have the wherewithal right now to service that. But so like here are the top 3 people that I would suggest versus like this or for this industry, and I'll recommend someone as things come up so that I get to not oversell myself and underdeliver, because I've hired too many people who've done that to me, and I've also been young when I was like 18 trying to run a business, and it's just like nobody wins. Like you trying to be a superhero, no one wins. Just say, hey, there's a 3-month wait, there's a 4-month wait. I can't do it right now. I want to do it, but it's not there. And so I do it as it arises, or this is what we're limited to. This is the parameters of like what we're doing right now. And let's just list off, I'm not doing these things, just so that we're clear on what's not being done.
You have to define your scope.
Yeah.
And what I've found is that if you bake all that into our proposal, by the time I've delivered the proposal, I've already built the relationship with them. We've already had a lot of conversations, because I don't just give a proposal to anybody that asks for one.
Right.
So we got to go through a discovery process where I'll spend a couple hours looking at their website and looking through things. That's to my benefit as much as it is to theirs. One of my favorite sales expressions is try to get to a no as quickly as possible.
That's good.
So let me ask you this. What is your typical client engagement in terms of length?
At least 6 months.
Is it retainer based, or is it one-off, like line item they pick from a menu?
Retainer based, and then there's the add-ons. I'll call them upsells, right? Where they're like, hey, I also want photos for the website. I also want content creation. I also want whatever.
So those are like one-offs. Yeah. We do things similarly where we'll define the scope of work, and then we charge a flat retainer for that. And we try to include as much as we possibly can in that, so that the client gets a good value. Your 6-month engagement. So what happens at the end of that 6 months?
They want to lower their costs usually because they're liking the results, but they're like, well, that keeps my margins at whatever. And so like if I have someone internal take it over, then I can expand my margin. But the thing that they don't often think through, because they usually come back after about another year, because they're like, hey, I'm just not seeing the same results. And it's like, well, that's because the person that you're having do it just doesn't have my experience, and that's not a slight against them. It's just like they have different experience. Right?
They don't have time.
There's that too.
Yeah, trying to get your IT person or your salesperson to do marketing, they're already busy.
Yeah,
they already their plate is already full.
Yes,
and this is the first thing that's going to fall off.
It's not an extra. It's marketing is a full-time function, and so I've had it handed over to operations people. I've had it handed over to IT, and they're like, oh, well, they'll figure it out. Just teach them whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the platform we use for the socials, and this is what I do for content. And then their eyes just get big, and they're like, I have to do all that. And I'm like, you can talk to them. And I usually try and get them as an ally. I'm like, you can talk to them to say that, hey, I'd love to keep doing it, but if you're not interested in paying, then we'll see you when you come back, I guess.
How do you show the ROI of your services?
Benchmarking. So kind of what I mentioned earlier, before I touch anything, where are we at? And then every month I'll give a report. Here's where we're up. Here's where we're down. Here's why. So like what happened, why it happened, and then what are the levers we're going to pull to make positive change for those things.
Just be aware of the conversation. Just being aware of the conversation is also, huge. Better than not paying attention at all.
Yeah.
So as you look back on your career to this point, what skills or experiences do you think have compounded the most?
That's a good question. Skills or experiences that have compounded the most. Frankly, I don't know how to quantify which ones I'd say compounded more than others, but I really believe that first going to film school, seeing how hard it is to actually become successful and like want to be a director producer, and then making my own content and shorts and like writing the script, finding the actors, doing the casting, finding the location, funding all of it myself, draining my bank account, and like just seeing how hard it is to be successful in today's world, regardless of what you want to do. I think that's probably my top lesson is like, it's astronomically harder to be successful in today's world just out the gate than we see on Instagram or TikTok where kids are doing a dance and they're getting 1 million followers. It's like, that's not real life. That's 1 in a million, literally, right? I have a friend who's TikTok famous who lives here in town, and he got it during COVID because he loves D&D and he was making sandwiches, and he's like, well, why don't I just do a creative thing? And so he rolls for a different sandwich, and so he eats these terrible sandwiches or really good ones because whatever the dice lands on, he puts that topping on his sandwich. And like, he hit it big, but even his workflow like is astronomically harder to get to those levels of success than I feel like I was sold growing up. So back to your like skills and experience, I'd say it's that, and then getting into marketing afterward, and then learning that marketing isn't just making fun content. It has to be tied to ROI. And so I'd say that those are kind of the three things, like, trying to do something yourself and having to invest blood, sweat, tears, and finances into it, failing, then switching careers over to marketing because I just had to pay my student loan off, which is what happened, and like just survive. And then from there, realizing like the function of the thing that I switched over to actually can be used as a superpower if you know how it should be communicated, as opposed to just like, well, we put out a really beautiful newsletter. And it's like, well, did you generate any business? Well, no, but like the graphics look great. It's like, well, then I don't care, right? Like seeing those things webbed together or tied together, I think has been a solid foundation of like, what are we doing in today's market? Because we all have to have jobs. I don't care if you're a cleaner or, you know, a famous TikTok person. Like you need to have some job that offers you at least an ounce of purpose, where you're like providing something to society, even if that's entertainment, like something, right? So.
Yeah. A lot to unpack there. I was say, if I've had that question posed to me before, and that's kind of why I wanted to include it. My answer is relationships. Like you really can't have enough good relationships, especially if you're self-employed, or even if you're not, even if you're an employee at a firm, and even if you've been there for 20 years, you still need to have relationships that you might need to leverage at some point for other employment or other opportunities, or just basic information sharing. And so the more people that you provide value to, the more relationships you're going to have, because reciprocity is human nature. And so that's why I say take an altruistic approach to everything that you do, because you're going to build up a lot of goodwill with a lot of people.
I love that about relationships, though, because that is, I didn't think of it from that angle, because I don't think of relationships as a skill or an experience necessarily, but I would 100% agree. Like all the word of mouth that I get is because I provided good value first to whomever and their business. They're like, oh, hey, you really need to talk to so-and-so because I think they can help you solve whatever your problem is.
Yeah, it's everything. It's everything, and you can get cold leads, you know, through SEO and paid ads and social media. You know, one of the things you spoke of a minute ago, inability to draw a line, or at least a straight line, between marketing tactic to a particular result. You know, you could post on Instagram 500,000 times in the next 2 years, and you might see an uptick in revenue, and you might not, depending on what it is that you sell. But even if you do, it's hard to draw a line from one to the other, from a cause and effect standpoint. You know, I define like social media marketing it's like the art of cultivating demand for your product or service, where SEO is taking advantage of the natural demand that's already out there. You know, people are performing Google searches, and it's just a matter of casting as wide a net as you possibly can. And so same with paid ads on Google, but people mostly get on social media to waste time. And so diverting their attention, you know, away from cat videos to what you want them to pay attention to is extremely challenging. And so even if you put something out there that gets a bunch of attention, it doesn't mean anything. You know, it doesn't mean that you're going to, you know, have a sustained result as a result of that. So how do you navigate those conversations as a social media marketer?
Yeah, attribution in marketing, and I don't have to tell you, is a pain in the ass. Is it first touch? Is it last touch? Is it dark social? Right? Like, it's all of them, frankly. Like, because when you and I are buying something, if you got to buy a new car, you're not just going to go to the dealer, try 3 of them out and go, yep, this one's good. You're going to go to multiple brands. You're going to see about, like, how does this affect your family? Is it going to keep them safe? What's the rating? Is there a recall? You're going to do a bunch of research. So you're going to watch a bunch of content. You're going to do some searching on Google. You're going to go look around. You're probably going to use an LLM. And so it's like, well, which one should be given credit that you bought? And it's like, well, it's all of them. And so I think that the issue that we're running into right now is, how do you prove to your upline or your client or your whoever, like, that your actions, your tactics ended up creating ROI for them? That's like, well, that's a really hard question, which is why I like to do my best to offer some sort of discount code or something like that if it's consumer product good, where it's like, hey, Threads 26, right? Great. Yeah. Now I can tell you all the people who purchased through this, I can absolutely credit from Threads, right? Like, how can I offer something in a specific channel to at least strengthen, I don't say, fully prove, but strengthen that the ROI was from that channel, so that you can say, hey, each of these channels are performing in XYZ way, and here's the growth we've seen, here's the decline, whatever. But the big thing that people get wrong with social media is, and we kind of touched on this earlier, it's like, you can't just post. You need to go and do some research and find out who in your niche is doing well, pick those frameworks and recreate that content, which takes time, and you have to be able to perform it well enough to then get them to even show up to your website, to consider you as an option, so that 6 months from now they can buy.
Yeah, and what you just described is branding, and branding and brand awareness. And so the more you're out there, you never know which one of those touch points is going to be the trigger to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and make that purchase. And so whether you sell shoes or food or a service, it doesn't really matter what it is. The more times you're in front of them, the more credibility you're going to have, just by virtue of the fact that they've heard of you. Going back to ROI, and that's what most business owners are focused on, dollars in, dollars out. And it doesn't really work that way. And that's why I really never got into social media management as a profession. It certainly has its place. Yeah. There's a lot of, like, businesses, like an auto repair shop, for example. It's people are paying you to put something back the way it was. Yeah. They're not thinking about you. You don't really have a relationship with them in the literal sense. And they certainly don't want to hear from you, because it probably reminds them of their last $1,900 repair bill to fix their transmission. The world needs good social media marketers, because there's not very many of them out there. And so what do you do to differentiate yourself in those initial conversations?
I tell them the truth. Similar to what you said a second ago, is not every business needs social media marketing. And that's why I also offer, like, growth marketing and content creation in the form of SEO, or like, hey, we should put out a 30-minute documentary of, like, the power of cars, or whatever it is, to try to build off of your metaphor from a second ago, right? Yeah. But, like, consumer product goods could use social media marketing, and I have a base package that's like, hey, just be seen. And it's the cheapest thing that I offer, but, like, it's just general content. It's sales content, I'll call it, right, for social media, because you're not expecting people at the mechanic shop to do a TikTok dance, to get famous, to then encourage people to come spend $1,900 that they don't want to spend. Right. It's just not going to happen, right? And so there's a lot of businesses that don't need that stuff. So I like to ask them, like, well, what's your goal? And it's like, oh, well, we're trying to double business next year. It's like, okay, well, what's your strongest channel right now? Well, we're not sure. And I go, okay, well, we should probably investigate that. And so, like, I'll hone in on whatever they're doing. And it's usually, they come to me with one problem, and I try to find the other problems that could create higher leverage, not just for them, but also for me, to grow this relationship, in order to make sure that I keep someone around longer than 6 months, because they're like, well, I don't need social media anymore. It's like, you're right, you don't. You need someone who's going to help you hone in on business stuff. But I encourage a lot of businesses to have, like, this little piece on the side that, like, what is the bare minimum thing, like this social media that I offer, where it's just like, okay, you're not going to get crazy results. It's just, you have to be in the conversation. You should be making a couple posts a week, and, like, I can take care of that for a couple $100. Like, it's not going to be great. I'm not promising great ROI, but, like, you got to be in the conversation. I try to help them identify real business problems that will create leverage after they come to me with, hey, I want more social media.
Well, the first thing you said everything. That you tell them the truth. Yeah. And I do the same thing. And I think that they can tell they're not being bullshitted within 30 seconds at the start of the conversation.
Yeah.
And you can tell by their level of engagement that they're like, okay, this is different. And so, do you know Parker DeCubber?
No.
He was on the podcast a couple of months ago.
Okay.
He's somebody that I think you would enjoy networking with, because you're saying a lot of the same things that he is. He does video marketing services.
Oh, no, I did watch that episode.
Yeah, he's a bit of a potty mouth. What's up, Parker?
Yes.
Yeah, nothing's off limits on the Moxie Men podcast.
There you go. I love it. That's funny.
Let's circle around to the beginning of your career in marketing. And if you were to start off today, and maybe we could frame this as, what advice would you give to somebody who was starting out today, whether they have a network, whether they don't, whether they have, assuming that they have a decent, strong skill set to start with, because you're dead in the water if you don't.
That was going to be my answer. That was going to be my starting answer. Like, what are your skills? But finish your question.
Yeah, let's assume that they are at least competent. Maybe they've worked somewhere for a while and built up some skills, and they're looking at going out on their own. What would you do differently if you were just starting out, knowing what you know now? And what advice would you dispense?
I would go find another job in that industry or with that skill set to start. Like, you got to get paid. You got to put food on the table. You don't have to be passionate about what you're doing just out of college. Like, that's not on the cards for you. Just do something that pays you the most amount of money as a starter. On the side, if you want to then branch out and like start your own thing eventually, I would start reading business books. I would go talk to local businesses that you're like, oh, hey, this window shop next door used to have one location because my mom bought windows from her. Now he's got 3. Maybe I should say, hey, shoot him an email, say, hey, I noticed that you're growing. I'd love to have a conversation. Can I take you to lunch? You pay. Like, if you're a young gun, it shows a lot of, we'll say moxie, to bring them to lunch and offer them some hospitality, because you don't have anything to offer them outside of getting them a free lunch. Like, their time is so much more valuable than yours, and you should treat them with respect for that, to then say, hey, I want to learn from you. It seems like you're doing well. I'd love to. And they're not going to be able to teach you everything, but maybe they're really great at sales. Maybe they're really great at closing. Great. Get that skill. Maybe you find somebody who, like, you're noticing, hey, I've seen their marketing grow years over years. It's like, okay, great. Maybe talk to them a little bit. So see if you can find some mentors out there, but no one's going to come to you to mentor you. So you have to do everything. Like, action is the greatest way to get the life that you want. It's a matter of, like, how much are you willing to hustle and grind to get there. If you're trying to grow, read business books, find mentors who can help you, even if it's like once a quarter, like, hey, Mike, I noticed you're really good with SEO. Can I sit down with you? Like, can I take you to lunch? And like, you're going to turn down a kid who comes to you and says, hey, I'd like to take you to lunch, because people who are successful value their time. And so they're not going to give you a lot of it. Like, how hungry are you really? So those are the things that I tell someone young trying to like grow. But my first answer was going to be like, you need skills. The more value that you can bring to the customer, and then your name starts getting around, word of mouth, and then they want to bring you in for everything. And like, now you have a network because you were really good with one person who knew 5 other people, helped them, and it grew here and there. So
yeah, what you just described, 100%. I agree with everything. And the only thing I would add is that when somebody does hire you, regardless of what they're paying you, do a kick-ass job for everybody. Because the ability to demonstrate that you can do and will do what you say you're going to do is everything. Like, because talk is cheap. My now 15-year-old son, he's snowblowing in the neighborhood because he wants to buy a new musical instrument. And I'm like, I told him I'm not buying it. And so once he realized I'm not buying it for him, he's, kind of taking some initiative. The first one's free. If you want me to do it again, the rate's $15 each time. And he taped it to his door. Right. And he got a text the next morning from the neighbor. He even paid him for the first one. And I think he's now done it every time it snowed pretty much.
That's awesome.
And so, but I'm like, I told him, like, you don't ever have to do it for free ever again. It's cool that he paid you. That's nice of him to do that. And I appreciate it. But you don't have to do it for free ever again. In fact, you don't ever have to charge less than you did the last time. And it's true. And the same is true in consulting. In consulting, you're pretty much only as good as your most recent gig.
Yep.
But if you continue to have success and you continue to level up because you learn something each time, you can quite literally raise your rates for every new client.
Absolutely.
And your reputation is everything.
That actually builds pretty well on my favorite manager I've ever had, Patrick, at one of these Silicon Valley startups that I worked at, taught me the greatest lesson. He said that you're only ever going to be judged on 2 parameters, perception and performance. And we were talking about the fact that like there was someone in our company who had great performance, but their perception was non-existent. And so he's like, if either one of those is too heavy, then you're just going to get laid off. Because like if you have high perception but no performance, people are like, when they find out that you're not actually doing the work, then they're going to let you go. If they find out that you are doing the work but they didn't know that, they're also going to let you go. And so you need to focus on both of these things, perception and performance, to be able to get ahead. And it's like, it's a lesson that's stuck with me.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan Tasman, I appreciate you coming by. Tell the world where they can find you once again, and we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good. So I'm Jonathan Tasman. You can find me on LinkedIn primarily. That's where I live these days. If you're looking for fractional marketing work, or you just want someone to come in and help benchmark where things are at, I also do marketing education. So I've come in and like taught teams. If you want something a little more fun and nerd-like, please check out my podcast, the SideQuest Book Club podcast. We are on every channel you can find. And so we would love to have you subscribe and follow along on the journey.
It definitely sounds nerdy, man. Awesome, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for checking out my content. If you like this kind of stuff, hey, please do me a favor. Like, subscribe, follow, hey, whatever platform you happen to be on. It really helps us out with the algorithms. Thanks. See you on the next video.